Hello and welcome to the next session of the A4Q Testing Summit 2026. 2 days full of a lot of speeches, nice topics about quality and testing in 3 languages with a lot of speakers. And now welcome here in this session, Lalitkumar Bhamare. He's QE thought leader at Accenture and one of leading voices of the testing community. I always see him on social media and on conferences. I really like his speeches too. And here we will talk about the 70% problem reclaiming testing's intellectual core with Agent Assisted QCSD. But before we start with the presentation, just a few notes. You can vote for the best speaker and the best presentation via our website. And if you have any questions during the speech, just put it into the chat and we will take care of that at the end of the presentation. And now I would say, welcome, Lalit. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Rishi. Can you confirm if you can see my screen?
I think it works now.
Okay, perfect. Very good. So good morning, everyone, from wherever you're joining. I'm very happy to have this conversation with you. The 70% problem is something that has personally kept me upset over the years because I'm a hardcore tester. I like the intellectual part of testing the most, and things that traditionally kept me very occupied as a tester those things had very little to do with testing and more to do with documentation, clerical work, this and that. And I was always frustrated, like, why am I not spending my time on actual testing then? So fast forward to 2026 with a lot of stuff happening in the age of AI, so to speak. I decided to give it a try and see if the technology can flip that equation for us, which is why I'm here in front of you presenting something that I have been experiencing, practicing personally, which I believe is giving me a lot of positive outcome. And here I'm to share this with you for taking the craft ahead. So what this 70% problem really is about, I believe whenever there is a new tech coming or whenever there are innovations happening in terms of tech, methodology, or anything else, testers are typically left to figure out it for themselves, what it means for them. And that often results in a unstructured, unplanned, not very thoughtful ideas popping up, which contaminate the craft more than contributing to it in a positive way. And I believe with the rise of AI, the same thing has happened. So, traditionally, when we think of innovation in testing, people tend to just try to do more test cases, faster test cases, more of this, faster this. And I believe with the power that AI brings in, this problem actually got worse because the correct way to look at testing is not necessarily about creating more test cases faster at scale, but creating value, creating information, finding out the information in a way that stands up to scrutiny, in a way that helps stakeholders make informed decisions about risk and what to do further. So I'm observing our industry kind of is stuck in the faster horse problem where we are not using AI tech particularly for testing in a way that it should be. It's very powerful tech. It has lots of benefits as well as the flip side of it. And if we use AI in a way that really makes meaningful contribution to the testing field, then I think it's it's a double-edged sword which we can use to our advantage if we know how to use it consciously. And the conscious use is definitely not about creating more test cases, faster test cases that don't really help anybody in a meaningful way. So I don't know how many of you are aware of the state of testing report, which I have been co-authoring with the practice from around 12 years now. And this year's findings have been way more interesting. we observed how teams are basically using AI tech, and particularly the testing teams. And if you see at the numbers, um, things haven't really changed much. We are basically doing the same testing, same way of looking at testing, same way of measuring productivity. It's just that we are doing it now with the power of AI. What that means, there are only 56% teams which are basically measuring uh, the productivity of testing in terms of test coverage, not really on the business impact. This is concerning. Your test coverage, even of 100%, if it is not contributing to, in the business growth, if it is not giving you any business significance, then that coverage has no meaning. Same goes to faster horse problem I just discussed. 70% of teams are more or less using AI to just create test cases, more test cases at speed and scale. And only 4.5% teams are basically measuring their business value, their uh, success, so to speak, on NPS. All of these things clearly tell that we have just embraced the modern technology, but we haven't upgraded our thinking while we upgrade our tools. And if we are not thinking differently about testing now, we are not really taking the graph forward. We are not really adding any meaningful progress to it. So what is the solution? Have you also experiencing a problem like this? For me, the real value of testing is in creating a value, right? As Jerry Weinberg says, quality is a value to some person. So my recommendation, my personal approach towards using AI in testing has been to use it for creating value and not just volume. So how do you go about it? Back in 2022, I created a framework called Quality Conscious Software Delivery. It was basically an outcome of around 3 to 4 years of experimentation and different kind of experiments and, so to speak, research, where I worked with my engineering team to come up with a way where we are not delivering buggy software anymore, but a software that people would like to use without necessarily delaying the releases, without necessarily adding more people in the mix. And that's basically helped me create the framework called Quality Conscious Software Delivery. The framework essentially revolves around three important things. The quality of products is and cannot be just a virtue of product alone, right? These products, these softwares are built by people who work on it. These people are working under certain project contexts. They are following certain processes which also affect their effect productivity. So when we think about quality, when we talk about quality, we also need to be very conscious of how the processes that we follow, how the people and their notion of quality affects the ultimate quality of the product. That's what that's what the quality conscious software delivery has been about. It comes with a set of principles, practices, heuristics, ideas, a way of collaborating in effective way, and it was quite successful as well for the teams who practiced it deliberately. However, given the ask for critical thinking, asking questions, analyzing things in a meaningful way, this framework was quickly hitting cognitive overload for people who did not have enough time to deliver the same way on day-to-day basis that they would do on a, let's say, less occupied day. And that was basically a deal breaker, because not all the teams have the luxury of doing things with their own pace, doing things right the first time, and taking their own time to analyze and critically think about stuff. uh, this is where the power of AI helped me. And I converted the whole quality conscious software delivery framework and encoded it in purpose built agents. And that's what basically makes it now Agent Assisted QCSD, where the philosophy remains the same, the processes remain the same, the practices and the recommendations remain the same, but now all the heavy lifting of uh, insights gathering, going deeper into different aspects of the application and finding stuff is done by agents, so testers can finally work on the most important part of testing, which is the intellectual core of it. How does this really work? So as you can see on my screen, the framework consists of around 60 plus special purpose agents. It has around 75 skills. It's built with an very impressive architecture built by my friend Ragam. He created agentic quality engineering, which is what the underlying quality intelligence engine is for Agentic QCSD. And it also has 5 agentic swarms. So let me quickly show you what I mean by that. As you can see on my screen, the typical activities that testers are meant to be doing in the name of testing are critical thinking, risk judgment, assessing testability, exploring deeper than what appears to the surface, ethical judgment, testing things from business context, from business goals point of view, being curious, exploring, building domain expertise. And to do this all, it requires quite a bigger appetite in terms of handling the cognitive overload. It requires above average passion to do things right as a tester, and which I understand not everybody can have it, right? From my experience, testers typically spend more time in documenting test cases, converting those into automated scripts, and then forever being stuck in their automation pipelines just for sake of keeping them green, right? This is not adding value. This is creating an illusion of work. This creates an illusion of something is happening, but that doesn't necessarily contribute and complement the business for which we testers are basically supposed to help, right? This is where agentic QCSD helps. So right from the ideation phase, where we are discussing ideas, analyzing requirements, finding gaps, defining if this requirement is fit for the business purpose, if it is requirement is fit for the development, so to speak, till the production telemetry, where we can still learn a lot about user behavior, how things are going wrong. Whatever happens in between is handled by special purpose agents. So the QCSD as a framework recommends a set of principles and practices during ideation phase. Then it recommends certain principles and practices, some collaboration techniques for refinement phase, then development, then your typical verification CI/CD phase, and the production phase. All of these phases are now assisted by swarm of agents. For example, the ideation swarm has around 13 agents and 9 skills, which help testers identify the gaps in the requirement. It helps testers ask right questions that are very important to be clarified right from the beginning. It helps testers understand the product coverage through product factor assessment right on the requirement stage. The refinement swarm helps testers and the rather project team to find out what was recommended as a change and what has actually changed, right? The development swarm has again special purpose agents that typically take care of scripting part of automation, which is quite easily done by agents, the AI agents these days. The CI/CD swarm has again dedicated agents which take care of selective test runs, finding out uh, which test cases should be automated scripts should be executed at what way, in what way, with what data, based on the user story context, so on and so forth. And that's basically what makes quality conscious software delivery easier for teams to implement and succeed with it, because the cognitive overload that people typically face is now getting shared by special purpose agents. Here are basically the examples here. So ideation swarm creates the assessment, which then gets fed to the refinement swarm. All of these agent swarms are also interacting with each other. They create learnings, they store patterns, they create handshake. So during your CI/CD swarm, if something is consistently failing on your pipeline, that gets identified as a risk, and it also gets fed to the ideation swarm and even refinement swarm. So for the next time when you're working on that feature, you are prompted to prioritize it. If something is consistently alerted in the production, if some user behaviors are concerning or some findings are there, the production swarm also feeds back that information to rest of the swarm. So at the right phase, you get to identify the associated artifacts, associated aspects of your software delivery, which you must address. So these numbers have been growing, and based on different business context, implementation context, the agent selection also changes. But that's in principle has been the philosophy and the foundational structure of Agentic QCSD, where agents, special purpose agents, take care of the activities. They have intelligence. I wouldn't say intelligence, but let's say they are designed with um, a design agency. They have an architecture that allows them to exchange, store learnings, self-criticize their work, self-evaluate their work, give feedback to each other. And this is where the tester's role shifts more from executor to orchestrator, where you don't necessarily evaluate the requirement yourself, but you basically evaluate the outcome of requirement assessment done by special purpose agents. Same goes to test case artifacts, same applies to automation script created, same applies to the defects that are basically raised by agents or findings that are coming from the agentic assessment of any kind. Uh, as I said before, this whole setup is dramatically powered by a special, carefully designed architecture, I would say, an intentionally designed architecture by Draga, where there is a queen coordinator, a master agent, so to speak, which does the task allocation from the inventory of 60 agents, 70 plus skills. The queen coordinator decides which agent to call for what kind of activity. There are 13 domains, so to speak, an enterprise domain. So, for example, if your application has some SAP integration, then the SAP related agent will be called upon for performing the activities. If there is some middleware, if there is some uh, accessibility related requirements, if there is UI, all based on the assessment of the user story, the code repository, the architecture, the business context, Queen Coordinator helps to delegate the agents what they should be doing. There is the router, model router, that helps with token optimization and make sure that based on the complexity of the task, right model is getting invoked and not necessarily everything is going to the higher complexity model. Reasoning bank basically is the brain of the system, where all the learnings and patterns are stored. Dream cycles are, so to speak, self-healing cycles, where periodically the agents evaluate their own work, and then they also self-heal based on whatever patterns and findings have been stored in the database. The fleet commander basically is an orchestrator which fires up the swarm of agents at your command. Strange loop is self-healing mechanism for the agents themselves. When they realize they're doing something wrong, they already recover from the previous lessons and come back on track themselves. The whole point of sharing all of this information with you is that if we have to really use AI, there are so many better ways, creative ways to use it beyond simply feeding a prompt to an LLM and asking it to design test cases or write automation script for that, because that's not where the value comes from. The value comes from carefully designing your systems using AI tech, which creates value for you in a context that matters. So if you're wondering what do we do about this now, my recommendation is this is an open source work. Feel free to check out the repo, download it for yourself, and start with understanding how this can enable you. First steps are to understand it for yourself, then enable your team, engage in the execution, maybe start some pilot, and then go to the execution phase, and eventually you can gradually you can switch to the full agentic swarm instead of uh, just invoking agents manually, and evaluate if it works for you, what improvements do you need to do. And that's basically the way about going agentic SDLC. As I said, this is all free. This is all available as an open source project. You just need to know how to start, have some basic understanding of using agentic solutions, and of course, right tooling and setup on your local machines. But that's basically what I had to share with you. I'm a big fan of Jerry Weinberg and his work, and I have had a very big impact on my way of thinking because of Jerry's work. It's no brainer. If we are to do if we do right things from the beginning, we are definitely going to save cost and time, right? And I think when we have some tooling and system in place that enables us to do it better, then why not to use it? And this is precisely what Agentic QCSD helps team to do. It helps with faster delivery, risk prevention, and continuous quality. But beyond buzzwords, beyond just artifact creation, it's something that is purpose built, designed with intent in terms of skills, the agents, the architecture, everything. And it has been doing quite meaningful work for me, for the people I have handed it over to. And I just wanted to share this with you because you too can have it. Ultimately, the faster horse are not going to save us, but maybe an amplified tester might, an amplified engineering team can do it. One of the way to do it is um, explore this open source project and see what miracles it can do for you, provided you know how to use it wisely. That's pretty much it, people. Thank you for your time. I'm open for questions. I don't see any questions on my screen. Da, da, da. Do we have Rishi here? Okay.
Hello. So now I'm on screen. I was waiting backstage. Yeah, thank you, Lalit, very much for this presentation and for these ideas. And yes, we have some questions here for you too, which came in. And I'm waiting for the first question. How do you imagine testers' role changing in agentic software development lifecycle era?
Well, honestly, I do not imagine testers being these artifact creators anymore. The role is certainly, particularly in agentic SDLC context, is going to be more about orchestrator. They will be helping their teams with their own understanding of software quality, their ability to observe and subtleties of things, and that's where they will bring value to improve the agentic solutions within their teams, right? Reviewing the agents work, whether the agents are doing right things or not, making sure that the agents are not just creating artifacts but they do something with some agency in place. Testers will help to build the agents with the design agency, as I call it. Maybe I will share the link later. But I think a lot of intellectual work that testers have been doing, they will now use that intellectual powers to help teams do things right with the assistance of AI agents.
Mm, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. The next question we have is: what skills do you recommend testers to get get better in agentic software development
I
lifecycle?
think it's high time now to again practice more critical thinking because
Mm,
our industry was asking people to get better at automation, get better at programming, this and that. But now that equation is again flipping. Yeah. My friend Keith Klein wrote an interesting blog yesterday, and I fully agree with him. Checking is officially dead. I would say now our industry has consistently fought this battle of testing versus checking, and a lot of us denied that, uh, let's say, semantic war. But yes, now literally majority of checking can be easily done by AI agents. So what are tester going to do? I don't think I'm going to hire testers for writing automation scripts in my team. I don't think I'm going to hire testers for writing even test cases, so to speak, right?
Mm,
But I certainly need testers who can think critically, who can tell me, hey, as a human, this is how I would do this differently. And I can train this AI agent to do things the way I would do. So, my recommendation for testers would be first get better at testing yourself, apply critical thinking, be an outstanding tester, and learn the art of designing agency in the agents that you will be developing, the skills that you will be building. Because your AI agent will be only as smart as you are as a tester, period. So,
mm,
step one, be smart tester, be an excellent tester, be an extraordinary tester, and then encode that expertise into the agentic solutions that you're building and testing for your teams.
Yeah, and as you said, critical thinking is one skill I think we have to train a lot. Yeah,
Yes, it's
yeah.
not.
Let's take a look at the next question. In this era with many tools and new ones every week for testing and software development, how do we know which tool best fits our needs?
That's an excellent question. This is exactly why I created my own, right? So the framework I spoke about, it's open source, and it's basically does come with a lot of agents and skills of itself, but it also allows you to build the skills and agents for your own context. So my preference would be to go with something that allows me to customize things, to build new things on top of what is already there. And also in near future, I would say you won't really need to buy commercial tools for anything agentic. It, it it's it's going to be a daily business for everybody. The way you currently write probably helper methods and the way you currently write automation in your day-to-day business, the whole thing will shift now to agentic. So you will be, your day-to-day job will be to basically fine tune the agents, modify the skills, monitor them, maintain them. And I don't expect one particular software to be doing this all for you. So
Mm,
give yourself a time. A lot is going to change in the agentic era. This is how I'm experiencing it. This is how I'm practicing it. I don't have one particular set of agents that I use everywhere. When I'm implementing this agentic QCSD at different clients, different projects, I have the foundational framework in place, but I'm creating, the customized versions of the framework for different implementation. In some cases I don't necessarily need 60 agents, maybe 10 are enough. In some cases I have to build some extra agents for particular tech stack, particular business context. This is basically what you would be required to do in near future.
mm.
And yeah, there is no one tool that's gonna do all of it for you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, the audience, for all these questions. And please don't forget there is this voting possibility for the best speaker. No, it's this direction. The QR code you see there, just scan it. Do your votings for presentation and speaker. Lalit, thank you very much for your insights, for your ideas here in this presentation. And I really appreciate it. It was very interesting. And for you all, I wish you a great rest of the conference. Check out the program, the different tracks. There are a lot of speakers these days you can learn from, and have a good time. And thank you very much, Lalit.
Thank you for having me. Have a good one. Bye.